Have you ever wondered why some older films feel louder, wilder, and strangely more alive than anything we see now? The kind of movies that broke through the rules instead of following them? In the middle of that wild zone sits a list Quentin Tarantino has praised for years. These films are bold, messy, and full of attitude, and yet there is something strangely artistic inside the chaos. Keep watching, because the deeper this list goes, the more unbelievable the stories get. And number 15, Switchblade Sisters, 1975. Some films don't just reflect teenage rebellion, they explode with it. Switchblade Sisters is one of Tarantino's absolute favorites, a wild and energetic slice of 70s cinema that he championed so strongly he re-released it under his own Rolling Thunder Pictures label. This movie moves fast, talks loud, and carries the kind of attitude that modern teen dramas can't even touch. The story follows a tight group of girls who rule their high school with confidence and matching jackets. Their world is full of shifting alliances, bold personalities, and quick decisions that can change everything. Instead of polished Hollywood conversations, the dialogue snaps with sharp one-liners, playful bravado, and heated arguments that feel real enough to spark off the screen. These characters aren't perfect. They are emotional, dramatic, loyal, messy, and unforgettable. Director Jack Hill gives the film a comic book punchiness. Bright colors, bold camera angles, and quick cuts make even simple hallway scenes feel electric. The energy never dips. Every moment leans forward, pushing you into the next twist with a grin. Tarantino praises the film for its fearless personality. It may be rough around the edges, but that roughness is the charm. Switchblade Sisters feels like a time capsule of pure 70s attitude, lively, rebellious, and bursting with character. Once you watch it, you understand exactly why Tarantino still talks about it with so much excitement. Number 14, Foxy Brown, 1974. Some characters don't just walk onto the screen, they arrive with a spark that never fades. Foxy Brown is one of those characters, and Tarantino has praised this film for years. It stars Pam Grier at her absolute peak, delivering a performance filled with confidence, humor, courage, and a fierce sense of justice. Foxy Brown didn't just make an impact on audiences, it shaped the entire identity of 70s cinema. The story follows Foxy, a fearless woman who steps into danger to protect the people she loves. She uses quick thinking, bold plans, and pure determination to stay ahead of everyone working against her. What makes Foxy unforgettable is her attitude. She never backs down, she never stays quiet, and she never lets the world push her into a corner. Tarantino has often mentioned how Pam Grier's energy influenced his own writing style, especially in the way he builds strong, commanding female leads. The film is packed with 70s flair, from colorful outfits to lively music to clever one-liners you'll remember long after the credits roll. Director Jack Hill fills each scene with personality, using bright visuals and playful pacing that keep the mood sharp and fun. It's stylish without trying too hard, tough without being graphic, and full of heart underneath all the attitude. Foxy Brown remains one of the most defining films of its era. It's bold, fast-moving, and endlessly entertaining, and Tarantino continues to celebrate it as a cornerstone of the genre. Number 13, Suspiria, 1977. Suspiria is proof that a film can be terrifying without relying on anything graphic. Instead, it builds its power through color, music, and a dreamlike atmosphere that pulls you in before you even realize it. This is one of Tarantino's all-time favorite films, and he has spoken about it with admiration for decades. Directed by Dario Argento, Suspiria feels more like a waking nightmare painted on a giant neon canvas. The film follows a young dancer who arrives at a mysterious academy only to discover that something feels deeply off. Nothing is straightforward. Nothing is explained. That is the magic. The bright reds, deep blues, and glowing greens create a world that feels alive, but in a way that suggests you're not supposed to be comfortable. The soundtrack, created by the band Goblin, pounds like a heartbeat mixed with a whisper, raising the tension even during quiet scenes. Tarantino loves movies that are not afraid to be unusual, and Suspiria is exactly that. It was made at a time when filmmakers experimented boldly with style. Instead of realism, Argento went for a fever dream experience, where every frame looks like a painting and every sound pushes your senses. Even viewers who avoid dark films often admire Suspiria for its artistic courage. It is bold without being graphic, intense without relying on forbidden imagery, and unforgettable long after you finish it. That blend of beauty and danger is why Tarantino still calls it one of the greatest stylized films ever made. Number 12. Master of the Flying Guillotine, 1976. Few films represent pure martial arts excitement the way Master of the Flying Guillotine does. Tarantino has praised this movie endlessly, calling it one of the most entertaining action spectacles he ever watched in a theater. It is colorful, outrageous, and proudly over the top, mixing tournament battles with imaginative character designs and a tone that feels like a comic book exploding page by page. The story follows a determined fighter who must face a series of challengers, each with their own bizarre style and personality. But the film's most iconic element is its mysterious visitor, who arrives with a strange tool that gives the movie its title. Instead of relying on realism, the film leans into imaginative exaggeration, letting the audience enjoy fights that look like larger-than-life showdowns. What Tarantino loves most about this film is its confidence. It never apologizes for being wild. It celebrates creativity through movement, costume, and unforgettable sound design. The pacing is quick, the characters memorable, and the energy almost chaotic in the best way. For many fans, this film represents the golden era of martial arts cinema. It inspired countless directors, game designers, and fight choreographers. When Tarantino talks about loving movies that feel like a crowd cheering inside a theater, he is talking about movies exactly like Master of the Flying Guillotine. It is the kind of film that leaves you buzzing. Number 11. The Bonnie Parker Story, 1958. Before glamorous outlaw movies existed, there was The Bonnie Parker Story, a fast-moving, punchy little film that Tarantino has praised for years. Most people think of the later, glossier Bonnie and Clyde movie, but this earlier take has a raw charm that modern audiences often overlook. It plays like a burst of energy, zipping through narrow roads, dusty hideouts, and daring escapes with a sense of fun rather than darkness. The film focuses loosely on real events, but instead of aiming for perfect accuracy, it aims for pure entertainment. Bonnie Parker is portrayed as a bold, quick-witted woman who charges into adventure with confidence and a touch of mischief. The film keeps a rapid pace, jumping from one chase to another, all while maintaining a bright and spirited tone that makes it easy to watch even for younger viewers. Tarantino enjoys films that move fast and never lose their groove. This one feels like a roller coaster built with imagination instead of special effects. The black and white visuals give it a timeless charm, and the performances have that mid-century spark where every line feels big and expressive. While The Bonnie Parker Story is not as widely discussed as other crime classics, it deserves more attention. It shows how filmmakers with small budgets used creativity to build excitement. It is stylish, fun, and surprisingly modern in rhythm. No wonder Tarantino still praises it. Number 10. Five Fingers of Death, 1972. Sometimes a single film can ignite an entire movement, and Five Fingers of Death is exactly that kind of film. Long before martial arts movies became mainstream in the West, this was the one that blew the door open. Tarantino has repeatedly called it one of the most exciting crowd pleasers he ever watched, and you can immediately see why. It hits you with energy from the very first scene and never lets up. The story follows a young fighter who must train harder, move smarter, and stay determined as rival schools clash around him. Every character has a distinct personality. Every showdown has its own rhythm, and the film uses music in a way that makes even simple moments feel dramatic. The famous rising tone theme became so iconic that it still gets referenced by fans today. What Tarantino admires most is how the film balances style with sincerity. It has bold sound effects, dramatic close-ups, and the kind of choreographed movements that feel larger than life. But at its core, it is a story about effort, loyalty, and rising above pressure. The audience cheers not just for the moves, but for the spirit behind them. When this film reached theaters in America, viewers reportedly stood up mid-showing because they were so hyped. It helped launch the kung fu explosion of the 70s, paving the way for hundreds of films that followed. These days, Five Fingers of Death still feels fresh, lively, and full of personality. It is pure cinematic joy, delivered with confidence and flair, and Tarantino has never stopped celebrating it. Number 9. Assault on Precinct 13, 1976. Before John Carpenter became the legend behind Halloween and The Thing, He made a gritty little siege thriller called Assault on Precinct 13, and Tarantino has always adored it. What makes this film special is its simplicity. A nearly empty police station, a small group of people trapped inside, and a mysterious gang closing in. With that minimal setup, Carpenter builds pressure like a ticking clock. The tone is different from most films of its time. It is quiet when it needs to be, sharp when it chooses, and strangely calm even when the danger grows. Carpenter used a tiny budget but stretched it through clever camera angles, atmospheric music, and a disciplined pace that feels almost hypnotic. Tarantino often praises films that turn limitations into strengths, and this one is a perfect example. Each character has a clear purpose, from the calm lead officer to the cool-headed prisoner, who unexpectedly becomes a key ally. Their teamwork forms the heart of the movie. Instead of showing constant chaos, Carpenter lets the situation simmer. The tension builds in layers, making every small moment feel important. Even decades later, the film remains striking for its clean storytelling. No padding, no side plots, just a direct path from the setup to the finale. Many modern thrillers try to do too much, but Assault on Precinct 13 shows the power of doing just enough and doing it well. Tarantino has called it the perfect boyhood adventure movie for grown-ups, and honestly, that fits perfectly. Number 8, Coffy, 1973. Pam Grier was already rising in the early 70s, but Coffy is the film that made her a legend, and Tarantino never misses a chance to praise it. This is vibrant, stylish, attitude-heavy 70s filmmaking at its peak. The film tells the story of a determined nurse who decides to stand up against the wrongs in her community, using quick thinking, clever traps, and pure grit to protect the people she cares about. What makes Coffy so special is its mix of personality and purpose. The film has bright colors, confident music, and the kind of swagger that defined the era, but underneath the cool surface is a story driven by heart. Coffy is not a superhero. She is smart, brave, and deeply human. That combination is why she became such an iconic character. Tarantino has said that the film has a unique electric charge that pulls the viewer in and never lets go. Scenes move fast, emotions stay high, and the dialogue has that punchy rhythm that blaxploitation films were known for. Jack Hill, the director, used charm and wit to amplify every moment, letting Pam Grier carry the entire movie with pure screen presence. The best part about Coffy is how empowering it feels even today. The film celebrates resilience, quick wit, and courage under pressure. It is loud, colorful, and full of momentum, but it also has a surprising emotional core. No wonder Tarantino has always considered Pam Grier one of his biggest cinematic influences. Coffy is the reason why. Number 7, Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Few filmmakers reshaped an entire genre the way George A. Romero did. After changing cinema with Night of the Living Dead, he returned with something even bigger, Dawn of the Dead. Tarantino has praised this film for decades, calling Romero one of the boldest regional directors in history. And watching Dawn of the Dead, you understand the admiration immediately. The film follows a small group of survivors who take shelter inside a giant shopping mall while the world outside falls into panic and confusion. But instead of focusing only on threats, Romero uses the mall setting to create a strange mix of humor, tension, and social commentary. The brightly lit stores feel almost cheerful, yet the atmosphere grows heavier with each passing scene. Tarantino loves films that work on multiple levels, and this one does exactly that. It is entertaining, unpredictable, and filled with memorable moments, but it also quietly critiques consumer culture, group dynamics, and human stubbornness. And all of this was made on a tiny budget in Pittsburgh, proving that you do not need a giant studio to make a worldwide impact. Another reason Tarantino loves this film is its balance of extremes. Scenes shift from quiet reflection to sudden bursts of action, without losing their rhythm. The characters make questionable choices, funny mistakes, and brave decisions, creating a grounded and believable group you want to follow. Decades later, Dawn of the Dead still stands as a towering achievement in genre filmmaking. It is bold, creative, and full of attitude, exactly the qualities Tarantino always celebrates. Number 6, The Pom Pom Girls, 1976. At first glance, The Pom Pom Girls looks like a simple 70s teen comedy, but Tarantino has always argued that it is much more than that. While many films from that era leaned heavily on cheap laughs, this one brings something different. A warm, loose, hangout energy that feels incredibly real. It captures the vibe of small-town youth with surprising honesty, showing the fun, the confusion, and the pressure of growing up. The film follows a group of students enjoying their final year of high school. There are football games, pranks, parties, arguments, and quiet, heart-to-heart moments. Instead of pushing a heavy plot, the film invites you to drift through their world. You feel the California sun, the dusty roads, and that sense of freedom that comes right before adulthood closes in. Tarantino has said that modern coming-of-age films owe a lot to movies like this one. Richard Linklater, the director of Dazed and Confused, even admitted that films like the Pom Pom Girls helped shape his own style. And when you watch it, that influence is obvious. The characters feel natural, the conversations sound unscripted, and the humor comes from personality instead of big setups. What makes this film endure is its sincerity. It does not try to shock or preach. It simply captures youthful energy with a relaxed confidence. It is fun, playful, and full of charm. Tarantino loves films that feel like real life caught on camera, and The Pom Pom Girls fits that description perfectly. Number 5. The Last House on the Left, 1972. There are films that feel dangerous even when softened for younger viewers, and The Last House on the Left is one of them. Tarantino has spoken about this movie many times, always acknowledging the unsettling power it carries. While the original has harsh moments, its impact comes from the raw emotions behind the story, rather than anything graphic. For this PG-safe version, we focus on what makes the film historically important rather than what makes it extreme. The story follows two friends who set out for a fun night, but run into a group that leads them into deeper trouble. Instead of showing anything direct, the film uses atmosphere and tension to create a sense of unease. Everything that matters happens in faces, reactions, and the uneasy silence before choices are made. Wes Craven, the director, shot it like a documentary, giving the film a sense of realism that was rare at the time. Tarantino admires how the movie captures fear without relying on big effects. The handheld camera work, the unpredictable pacing, and the emotional swings give the film a unique voice. Audiences in the 70s were shocked, not because of what was shown, but because of how unusually direct the storytelling felt. The Last House on the Left also marked the beginning of Wes Craven's career, setting the tone for decades of creative filmmaking. Tarantino has often said it was one of the only films that genuinely made him uncomfortable, and that honesty, that boldness, is why it remains a landmark in exploitation cinema. Number 4. Thriller, A Cruel Picture, 1974. You can feel the grit of the 70s in every frame of Thriller, A Cruel Picture. Tarantino has described it as one of the toughest revenge films he ever watched, but the heart of the movie is not the harshness, it is the determination of its lead character. The original version contains strong content, but we focus here on the artistic choices, pacing, and emotional core that made the film influential. The story follows a young woman who, after a troubled childhood, grows into someone determined to reclaim her life. She trains, plans, and builds herself into a force of resilience. That sense of rising from hardship is what gives the film its staying power. The slow-motion scenes are legendary, with almost dreamlike visuals that inspired filmmakers across the world. Tarantino famously showed this film to Daryl Hannah while preparing her for her role in Kill Bill, explaining that the tone, not the content, was the key inspiration. It is a film about grit, patience, and the unshakable will to overcome. Even when softened for general audiences, the core message remains clear. Strength is often born from struggle. The film's style is unmistakable. Long, quiet moments, wide shots that linger, a haunting musical score. These choices give the movie a hypnotic atmosphere. This artistic backbone is why Tarantino calls Thriller a milestone in revenge cinema, even though he always warns new viewers to choose carefully. It is uncompromising, unforgettable, and stylistically bold in a way few films ever dared to be. Number 3. Rolling Thunder, 1977. Rolling Thunder is one of Tarantino's all-time favorites, so much so that he named his old distribution label Rolling Thunder Pictures as a tribute. The film is a slow burn at first, taking its time to build tension before delivering a story filled with grit, sorrow, and determination. It stars William Devane as a veteran returning home to a life that no longer feels familiar. Every scene is loaded with quiet anger, emotional turmoil, and a growing sense of injustice. Tarantino loves this film because it never pretends to be polished. Instead, it embraces the messiness of real emotions. Devane's performance is striking in its stillness. He barely raises his voice, but you feel every emotion beneath the surface. Tommy Lee Jones appears in one of his early roles, adding a layer of intensity that hints at the legendary career he would grow into. The turning point in the film comes when the lead character experiences a devastating personal loss. Instead of showing anything graphic, the film focuses on his face, his silence, and the weight of the moment. From there, the story shifts into a determined journey, driven by raw emotion and a desire for justice. The film's power lies in its restraint. It never rushes. It never tries to impress with special effects. It lets the story unfold with a steady, commanding grip. Tarantino praises Rolling Thunder as one of the greatest revenge stories ever filmed, and even in a PG-safe retelling, the emotional punch remains remarkably strong. Number 2. Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Night of the Living Dead changed everything. Before this film, stories about groups trapped in isolated houses were simple, predictable, and often lighthearted. Then, George A. Romero stepped in with a tiny budget and a giant imagination. Tarantino has always admired directors who push boundaries through creativity rather than money, and this film is the ultimate example. The story follows a small group of strangers who take shelter in a farmhouse while mysterious events unfold outside. The tension does not come from graphic scenes. It comes from mistrust, panic, and the unpredictable nature of human behavior under stress. As the night wears on, alliances shift, emotions flare, and the characters slowly unravel. The quiet moments are the most powerful ones. Tarantino has said many times that Romero was one of the coolest independent filmmakers ever. He shot the film in rural Pennsylvania with local actors, real locations, and a determination to show the world what could be done outside the studio system. The stark black and white photography adds a documentary feel that makes everything seem more immediate and real. Night of the Living Dead proved that independent filmmakers could shake the world. It influenced decades of creators, including Tarantino, who has always praised its boldness and raw storytelling power. Even in its most softened form, the film remains a masterclass in atmosphere, character tension, and low-budget brilliance. Number 1. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. No film on this list has a bigger reputation than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even when softened for younger audiences, the legend surrounding it remains enormous. Tarantino has praised the film countless times, calling it one of the greatest independent achievements in cinema. Surprisingly, the original movie is far less graphic than people imagine. Its power comes from suggestion, sound, atmosphere, and the constant feeling that something is terribly wrong. The film follows a group of friends traveling through rural Texas who encounter a strange family living on the edge of society. What stands out is not what the camera shows, but what it refuses to show. The fear comes from shadows, sudden movements, strange sounds, and the pounding heat of the setting. Every moment feels sweaty, claustrophobic, and unpredictable. Tarantino admires how director Tobe Hooper used documentary-style camera work, natural lighting, and unusual sound design to create a film that feels disturbingly real. The dinner scene, even in a softened retelling, is unforgettable due to its frantic editing, chaotic energy, and overwhelming tension. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre proved that a low-budget film with no big stars, shot in harsh conditions, could become one of the most influential horror films in history. It is loud in personality, fearless in execution, and endlessly discussed. Tarantino often calls it a miracle of independent filmmaking, and it is easy to see why. And that wraps up 15 films Quentin Tarantino has praised, celebrated, or been inspired by movies that bent rules, broke patterns, and proved that creativity does not need a big budget to hit hard. These titles shaped the way he watches, writes, and talks about cinema. Tell me which film on this list surprised you the most, and if you want more deep dives like this, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and keep exploring the wild side of movie history.